Today, authorities recovered 3 more bodies, bringing the death toll from the Sevier County wildfires to 7. More victims may be found as crews search even deeper into the mountains.
One of the most popular parks in Blount County has lost one of its most important resources, its bathrooms. Take a look at this. Park officials say it is the worst vandalism they've seen in years. For the second year in a row, Pellissippi State has the largest enrollment of any community college in the entire state. The school has more than 10,000 students, nearly 3,000 of them first or second year Tennessee Promise students.
We also want to share this surveillance video that was just released as well. It shows both Carly and Gary on May 4th at a Save-A-Lot in Rogersville purchasing items like groceries, toilet paper, that kind of thing. Again, why are they sharing these images and these videos with us? They want people to be vigilant, get the best look at Carly that they can. So if by chance you see her in real life, you're going to have a better understanding about what she looks like. Casey Wheelis joining me now. Casey, you spoke with Gary Simpson's wife today about her reaction to the items that he purchased, and she kind of found out the same way we did through the TBI.
Where are we in the search for Carly? Well, James Trent told me tonight that he's asking everyone, no matter where you live in East Tennessee, to check your barn, maybe a shed in your backyard or your property if you have a lot of property, and look for signs of his daughter. We talk about wooded areas all the time, but until you go to Hawkins County and you drive through Rogersville and you're in the middle of it, only then do you realize really how isolated you are and how people could be hiding anywhere. I had an exclusive interview with Carly's father the other day, and part of what we talked about was, what is that moment going to be like for you when she is finally home with you? And he said, it's going to be bittersweet.
So this is really where everybody is converging with information, shelter, help, all of the above. About 500 to 600 people have checked into this shelter so far. And talk to me a little bit about the mood that you're seeing as people come into the shelter. A volunteer who said he's a local pastor but didn't want to give his name literally started crying in front of me and said, I'm here to help other people, but I know I've lost everything that I have. He said the firefighters told them that his house did not make it on the right side of the fire line. So these are the stories that we're unfortunately hearing tonight. We've got fire truck after fire truck after fire truck lined up in this enormous parking lot. So not only is this a place where people are coming for shelter, this is a place where all of the crews are getting together to make sure that they are fighting this and responding in the best way possible.
As that news conference concludes, I think the key takeaways: 3 people passed away, each in separate incidents. So it wasn't 3 people together, 3 friends or 3 family members or 3 neighbors. They were each separate incidents. 14 people so far now transported to various hospitals. It was interesting to hear the mayor say, you know, it's all of us have lost something. He lost his home and his business of 31 years. The city manager and her husband lost their home. So this is something that hits very close to home for a lot of people.
This is very telling. We found this board earlier today. If you want to take a look, handwritten notes posted to this board in search of information about missing people. Sometimes notes left for those missing, asking for family members to call home. This is a story we've heard all too much about. I don't know, Carrie, if you can get a little bit closer to this note, but the Reed family, Michael Reed, cannot find his 2 daughters and his wife. A note written here saying, call your husband, Michael Reed, or Brenda. And the note is to his wife, Constance, and his 2 young daughters, Lily and Chloe.
Even the people who didn't get an alert or maybe wished they could have evacuated earlier say at the end of the day, first responders are their heroes. From what I've heard and seen, folks who lived through this fire have real respect and real admiration for crews who risked their own lives to protect them. And Ted, I have no doubt that is exactly what you're hearing out there as well tonight. Early on in this investigation, officials told us, look, we know that this fire was indeed started by a person, but at that point they weren't able to say whether it was accidental or intentional. Did they give any sort of idea whether they were closer to making that determination today? You know, when you were young, mom made you soup, maybe to cure a cold, or kissed a cut to make it heal. Guess what? Her magical power is still very potent now that you're an adult. And Rick is in. Rick, there is a play people cannot stop talking about. That, of course, is the catch. Yeah, I don't want to give it all away, so all I'm going to say is this. If you've ever wanted to eat your own face, you will have the chance to do it tomorrow, and it's a little bit more appetizing once you hear more about it.
So it's a real universal thing. Everybody wants it.
Everybody is going to want to eat their own faces. Yeah.
I really hope all of you had the opportunity to come out here because my jaw was on the ground the entire day.
And that's, as we're looking at some of the practice video, that's not a joke.
The Blue Angels trying to make Kelsey Lair lose her lunch didn't happen. Well, today, later on today, they took Sarah Mitchell with them to lunch.
Yeah, it's hard to believe the pilots are normal people because they don't seem like it really.
They're so glamorous.
Yeah, but
who would not want to go to lunch with the Blue Angels? I would definitely go to that lunch. Doesn't even matter what they're serving. Something
the
gross,
Blue Angels are there.
I'll eat it.
Yeah.
Who cares? I've noticed that there's a lot of people on social media who should be at work and are instead here on campus. So maybe lay low if you can.
If every step counts as a year gone back in time, then eventually this path leads to a story long grown over
This was the concrete foundation for a steam engine.
and nearly forgotten.
When people walk through the woods here now, they could walk right past this area and never realize what an important part of Tennessee history occurred at this very spot.
But Barry Thacker sees what many miss. What the passage of time has nearly erased at Coal Creek.
On May 19th, 1902, every male member in the town of Fredericksville perished in this disaster except for 3.
216 men.
Would walk down the trail.
216 men.
Had just gone into the mine.
216 men.
Who came to work that day were killed. Sadly, this has been a part of Tennessee history that has been forgotten.
There's no way, though, that Louise Nelson will ever forget
This is my grandfather,
what happened to George DeZern.
23 years old when he died.
Newspapers more than a century old
This is a whole list of all the miners.
record the story of her grandfather
George DeZern of Coal Creek.
and 4 great uncles.
The scene at the entrance to Fredericksville Mine is heart-rending. 1,000 women and children are assembled there.
Mother DeZern lost 5 of her sons and 2 of her son-in-laws as a result of the explosion.
Can you imagine that?
At 96 years old, as Louise nears the end of her life,
It takes, you listen to it. Look how fast it's going.
she begins to understand how short it is
And it goes by so swiftly.
and holds her family's history a little tighter.
I don't want these men to be forgotten. I don't know of anything that's more important.
Nearly 100 miners killed in the explosion at Fredericksville are now buried here. But 10 of them left something behind before they passed.
And those were the ones who wrote the farewell messages. Those miners knew that within the next hour they were going to perish. So they wrote what was dear to their heart. Oh God, for one more breath. Ellen, remember me as long as you live. God and family. Those are the 2 things that every one of those farewell messages discussed.
For decades, that's all that was discussed.
It was so painful for them that they wouldn't talk about it to their children.
And eventually, the story slipped away.
Many of the headstones say that the miners are gone but not forgotten. And sadly, this has been a part of Tennessee history that has been forgotten.
Come in and have a seat, please.
Forgotten until Barry brought it back to life.
Come in, have a seat, please.
In every 5th, 8th, and 11th grade classroom
On page 247,
in the state of Tennessee,
my grandfather was a coal miner.
the history of Anderson County's coal mines is now required learning.
There is an amazing amount of history here.
The final resting place for countless men is not where the story goes to die.
Now I can pass it on to my great-granddaughters and great-grandsons.
Instead, it lives, plain as day, set in stone.
And it will validate what it says on their headstones, that they are gone but not forgotten.